10-star Diamond Director, $1 Million Club member, Fortune 25 leader, Elite Bonus recipient, Platinum Paysetter, and proud grandmother, Collette Larsen.
Thank you so much. I can't believe it's been another year. What an incredible convention it's been. I'm telling you, every year. I always say my heart's so full, I'm afraid it's going to leak out my eyes. And those of you that know me well know that that's a possibility. You know, I am somewhat of a collector. I bet there's just a handful of people here in this auditorium who have every single Usana publication. Sterling might be one of them. I'm the other one. And Dr. Wentz probably has them. I've got every Usana magazine. And a couple weeks ago, I dragged them all out because I was curious. I wanted to go back to that first convention in Park City. Now, I wasn't at that one, but I wanted to see what the theme was of every convention. The first theme you probably saw up here the other day when Dr. Wentz was speaking. It was called Setting Your Vision. Isn't it interesting that vision was in that first theme? The next year was my first year at convention. Las Vegas, baby, Las Vegas. It was place your bet on excellence and cash in on Usana. What a theme, huh? They've gotten better as the years have gone on. I went down through all of them. The next year was Snowbird, Dream High. They went on and on. I loved the one... Usana for All Generations. I can't remember now. I think that was about 2000. And it was sort of when we started, those of us who were pioneers in Usana, we were starting to get this idea that this is not just your mother's network marketing company anymore. Usana for All Generations. And hasn't that come to be? Awesome. I loved Hearts of Gold, Connecting Dreams. Last year was one of my favorite, Changing Lives. And this year, No Limits. No Limits. Now, I remember back to about 10 years ago, maybe even 11, I think it was 1998. I was in Sydney, Australia. I think it was our grand opening, I believe. And I was standing back at the auditorium, and I was listening to this incredible woman. She was a platform speaker, you know, world-renowned platform speaker, and she was amazing. And I was standing back there, and Dennis Waitley walked up to me, and I turned to Dennis, and I said, how does she do that? I mean, how does she keep coming up with all that great material? Dennis looked at me, smiled, and he said, Collette, let me let you in on a little secret. He said, for professional platform speakers, it's much easier to change your audience than it is to change your speech. Do you remember that, Dennis? But for those of us that speak at Usana, and you know, I've had the privilege, the honor to say something at almost every convention, even that first one in Las Vegas, just a few of us, but they asked for testimonials from the audience. My knees were shaking, but I thought, I've got to share what's going on in my family. I stood up and spoke then. But you know, every year I feel this responsibility because you're my peers, because I love you. I want to share something with you. And what can possibly be said about No Limits on Saturday afternoon that hasn't already been said by the most eloquent speakers in our industry? My gosh, the people that have been across this stage this week. It blows my mind. So I was going, no limits, but I wasn't too worried because I treat myself to a week at Sana Vive about a month before convention every year. And I did this the last week of July this year. And you know, when you go to Sana Vive, and please, when I say when you go, you must go. Can I just say the Sana Vive dinner last night? What a highlight that was. Those of you that were there, I don't know, I wish all of you could have been there. The inspirational testimonials, the delicious food, and I mean really delicious, organic, healthy. It was fabulous. Anyway, I knew I was going to be at Sana Vive, and when you're at Sana Vive, every morning you have a half-hour meditation. And I have received so much personal inspiration from my time at Sana Vive. You sit in this beautiful room, the glass windows are open, you can hear the waves crashing against the cliffs, and I just knew my message would come to me. Well, I was there for a week, and although, you know, I've got to get serious about this, so I determined to go to a place where I go to worship. I love this place. It's sacred, it's special, and I have received a lot of inspiration there over the years. So I got up at 5 in the morning, and I traveled to this place, and I determined to stay there all day if I had to. Well, I did stay there almost all day, and I got some answers. Seek and you shall find. I got some answers, but not the answer I was looking for as far as what to share with you today. I was very frustrated when I got home. I walked in, Rick goes, "How did it go, honey?" I go, "I need my space." You know, I knew things were not going well. I went into my office, I shut the door. I've learned, I learned this from Bob Allen, when you want to start writing, you just get a blank document there, and if things will come to you and you just start typing it, it'll come. Well, a half hour later, I was still looking at a blank Word document. So anyway, while I was at Sana Vive, all these emails had piled up on me. I had several hundred, and I thought, well, in an attempt to look productive, I'll start going through my emails. So I was going through, and the first one I clicked on was from Mario Martucci. Many of you know Mario. He's here. And he said, "Collette, I think you'll love this." I clicked on this link, and here was this video of these beautiful young Indian boys. And they were doing a foot race, only these were very special boys. All of them had either lost a leg or were in braces or were crippled in some way. And they were on crutches and braces on their legs and special shoes. And it was on this dusty track, and the gun went off. And all of these children, they looked to be about maybe 8 to 12 years old. And they were running along this track, and a couple of the stronger boys were almost to this red tape across the finish line. And then this younger boy in the back tripped, and he fell. His face landed in the dust, and he cried out. And of course, this music starts up, and all these little boys turn around and look. And instead of crossing the finish line, they gather themselves up, they turn around, and together they go back and they lift this little boy up, and they put his arms around their shoulders, and they turn and go back, and they cross the finish line at the same time, all of them putting out their little hands and grabbing this red tape. Well, those of you that know me, Mario, it was so touching, it was so emotional, it was so inspirational. So I sat there, and I clicked on a few more emails, separating, putting into junk and so forth. And then I see that I've gotten a message from John and Helen Steely from Perth, Australia. John and Helen aren't here today, but in the subject line it said happy birthday. And I'd celebrated my birthday at Sana Vive. It's my birthday present to myself. So I opened that up, and they said, "Collette, happy birthday. We're sending you a gift we know you will love." Now, I maybe shouldn't have clicked on this, but I did, and it took me to this incredible video, and I'm going to ask them. I would love to show you, and maybe you want to Google it and watch the whole thing, but I'm going to show you just a little over a minute of it. Can you roll that video, please? Wow. Wow. It was one of the most beautiful birthday gifts I've ever received. and meant so much to me because shortly after I got involved in Usana, my youngest daughter, Lexi, had a double lung transplant. Many of you know this story, but she was in a coma for 3 months, and she was left paralyzed from the waist down by these drugs that they'd put her on. I'll never forget one day, she was in a wheelchair at the time, and we were going up Encinitas Boulevard, and we were stopped at a stoplight, and there was a bus stop over to the right. And I noticed Lexi looking over at the bus stop, and I looked over there, and there was a young man sitting in a wheelchair. And I saw this tender look in Lexi's eyes, and I said, "Are you okay, honey?" And she said, "Mom, you know, he's just probably a regular guy whose legs don't work." And I just thought that was so profound for a 14-year-old. So these videos had just filled my heart, but I still didn't have my message. I went to bed that night emotionally filled, exhausted. I got up the next morning. Since I went to Sana Viva, I promised my doctor, Armenia, that I would start exercising every day. So I've been hiking in this beautiful place called Double Peak up in North County, San Diego. And I walk on this trail, and then the trail veers off, and it's not paved, and it goes around this knoll, and if you hike around there, there's a bench that's there. And I go there all the time, and I've never seen anyone else there on the bench, so I think of it as my own personal inspiration point. So I was sitting there, and I was looking out over this beautiful valley, Lake San Marcos, and there's this water and all this green area. I saw these children playing, and as I sat there, I thought of this story about my brother Mike. His children are raised now, most of them, but he had this 5-year-old son named Kitch, and he had taken Kitch out to go kite flying. And they'd struggled to get the kite up in the air on this windy day, and then he passed off the string to little 5-year-old Kitch, and then Kitch was flying the kite, and he turned to his dad and said, "Dad, does the string hold the kite up, or does it hold the kite down?" Now, isn't that an interesting question from a 5-year-old? Mike is a great father and never one to miss an opportunity to teach a lesson. So he looked at Kitch and he said, "Well, let's find out. Why don't you let go of the string?" Well, all of you can imagine what happened. You know, the kite fluttered to the ground. And when Mike shared this story with me, he said, "Collette, I took that opportunity to teach my son that sometimes the things that seem to be holding us back, holding us down, the limits in our life are what are allowing us to soar. They're allowing us to soar." And so I'm sitting there on that bench and I'm going, I get it. I almost had to be hit over the head with it, didn't I? But I get it. This is the message. 3 words came to me, and they just literally fluttered down like that kite. Because I was thinking, no limits, no limits. And I can talk about no limits. I'm I've seen The Secret, for heaven's sakes. I get it. But you know what? I thought these 3 words, and they just floated down. And I knew it was the message that I had been searching for and, yes, praying for. Every person that's walked across this stage and told their story, it wasn't that they didn't have limits. I'm dear friends with the leaders in this company. Almost every one of them have overcome seemingly unsurmountable limits. I think of my own Usana. When I signed my name to that application, I said no one asked about my limits. I didn't have to say I'd barely graduated from high school, that I was a single mother with 5 children, that I was $1 million in debt, that I had no experience in this industry. I didn't know what network marketing was. I didn't have to tell them any of those things. No one asked that. I had tremendous limits. I don't know if I would have done what I did without them. Do you get this? It's okay. Recognize, embrace, transcend. History is replete with examples. Milton was blind. Beethoven was deaf. You know, this beautiful couple up here, I was so mesmerized by them. I did all this research. She lost her arm in a tragic accident back in 1996. She was a professional ballerina. She nearly took her life. Her family, she tried to take her life. Her family rallied And she came back. Her boyfriend left her, but then another man fell in love with her. And one night in 2002, it was a snowy winter evening, under an underpass, she began dancing for him without her arms. She didn't think she could because her balance was off, but he thought she was beautiful. He became her agent, and she found this young man who was going to be in the Special Olympics as a cyclist. The man you saw in the video, he lost his leg at the age of 4 when he fell off a tractor, and the leg had to be amputated. He had never danced in his life. They spent the next 2 years practicing every day. Every day. They had these limits. They transcended them. There's one fall in the video where he drops her and, of course, catches her, but in reality, he actually did drop her over 1,000 times on the floor. Recognize, embrace, transcend. You know, I thought again of my daughter, Lexi. The stories just started coming to me as I sat there. You know, at one point in her life, she'd reached the point where she had to be on oxygen 24 hours a day, and it was during the summer, and I was so worried for her to go back to school, to junior high school, because junior high can be tough. And she had to have an oxygen tank, and they didn't have the little portable ones they have now. She had to pull an oxygen tank. And I wanted to take her to school, and in fact, I wanted to go to every class with her. That was not an option. She wouldn't allow me to do that. And Charlie wouldn't allow me to. I can't look down at Charlie, but she wouldn't allow me to do that. And Charlie said, "Mom, we'll be okay." And I remember watching them walk up the sidewalk going to the bus stop with Lexi pulling her oxygen tank, and I just hoped she would be okay. When she came home that afternoon, it hadn't gone okay. Lexi went to her room, and I said, "What happened?" And Charlie said, "Oh, Mom, some of the boys were calling Lexi tube face." You can put that picture up. Since I'm looking at it, you might as well all look at it. How could anybody call that precious little girl tube-faced? She's just so beautiful. But Charlie said, "Mom, we've got to do this. You can't protect her. We've got to do this. I'll be there with her. We'll be at junior high together." That's Degano Junior High, and that's Sanitas, California, and that's Charlie on your left, Lexi on your right. Well, the next morning, Lexi came in for breakfast. She was pulling her oxygen tank. And on that tank, she had put a sweatshirt. She had draped a sweatshirt over the tank, and she'd tied the arms in front and tied it tight. And she loved baseball caps, and so she'd taken a baseball cap and put it on top of the regulators on top of the tank. And I said, "Lexi, what is this? What are you doing here?" And she looked at me and said, "Mom, it's just going to feel like I'm taking a friend to school with me." Recognize, embrace, transcend. She did. She absolutely did. My beautiful daughter, Charlie, I won't make you come up, but I'm going to make you stand up. She's going, "Thank you. I am going to make you stand up." This girl teaches me every day. She is my miracle. Stand up. 30 years old, given less than 10 years to live, mother. I was with her once when someone asked her if cystic fibrosis was terminal, and she looked at him and said, "Well, as far as I'm concerned, a terminal is where you go to catch a bus or a plane." I heard David Osmond say last night that being diagnosed with MS was the greatest blessing of his life because he now appreciates every step he can take. My daughter has taught me that every breath is precious. Every day is precious. Recognize, embrace, transcend. I wonder about Dr. Wentz. I've watched the Dr. Wentz video. I've thought, what would it have been like to lose your father, to lose your hero when you're just 17 years old? If that had happened to me, I don't know if I would have gone on to school. What if Dr. Wentz hadn't gone on to school? What if he hadn't shifted his focus because of the health situations, the limitations in his own family, shifted his focus from music to science? Those supposed limitations have blessed all of our lives. He recognized those limitations. He embraced them. He did something about them. He transcended them. A couple of years ago, I got a letter, an email from Oz Crosby. Now, I don't know if Oz is here either, but all my friends are in Usana, basically. And I love how you lift me. I got a letter from Oz Crosby. He had attended a personal growth workshop with my daughter Charlie and her husband Ryan. I didn't go there, but apparently Charlie was elected sort of group leader. And during one exercise, she floated down. She had done something that was physically impossible for her to do. Charlie does that on a regular basis. She floated down, sort of like we saw Dave and Dr. Wentz the other day. And he said, in his email, he said, Collette, as I watched her float down, I felt like I was looking at an angel. And he went on to tell me a little bit about that experience. And then he had this sentence. It was so powerful, it just hit my heart. I cut it, I pasted it, I've kept it every year in my journal. I write it again so that I can remember it. He said, how special it is when those who have a backdoor exit to showing up for life ignore it and transcend their limits. I loved that. What is holding you back? What is holding you back? Is it really a blessing in disguise? Is it something you need to recognize, embrace, and transcend? I'm telling you, that is what has happened to almost every leader I know in this company. So it is, in a way, about no limits. In a way. But it's also in realizing that it's in the refiner's fire that we become. That's where we become, is going through the tough times. That's how we become who we are. And that's how our hearts are filled with compassion and empathy. That's why when you come up to me and I look in your eyes and you tear up, I know, I know what you're experiencing. I've seen that same look in Dr. Wentz's eyes. I know he knows. I'm filled with gratitude. I love Usana. I love how it's enabled me to become. I love all of you. Convention lifts me up. It fills my heart. It revs me up. With a little Rev 3 also, of course. And by the way, one final thing I'm going to end with. That couple that you saw dance, they competed against 7,000 other couples in the national dance competition in China. This was a couple years ago. They came in second. I think that's pretty good. I think coming in second isn't that bad. Although, where's Fred? Where's Fred? I want a new award. I think there should be a Miss Congeniality award. Come on. I do love all of you. Thank you. I love you. God bless. Let's let our lives soar. God bless you.